Hi, this is Steve again, and as you know, Glacier is my favorite national park, and I've been to most of them. It has everything for the person who loves the outdoors and nature. There's a beautiful drive, mountains, lakes, streams, broad valleys, diverse wildlife, and of course, glaciers. But my favorite part is the over 700 miles of trails that help you experience it all. You probably know that I've produced a 90-minute documentary/travel guide called Glacier, the Hiker's National Park. It covers lodging and the Sun Road and other basics, and it also takes a very detailed look at several of the park's most popular trails. In this video travel guide, I'll provide abbreviated looks of the park's most popular hikes and many others that I have taken over the years. I'll also talk about the park's hiker shuttle system and provide some info on how to be safe in the backcountry. The park has trails for everyone, even if you're in a wheelchair. If you're a backpacker, Glacier has great multi-day backcountry hikes, but permits are required for those, and there are a limited number of backcountry camping permits. Most people have heard of the Appalachian Trail, but did you know there's also a Continental Divide Trail? The 3,100-mile trail begins in Mexico and goes all the way to Glacier National Park and then on to Canada. A few of my favorite Glacier trails are actually part of this monster trail. The park covers 1,600 square miles and has over 730 miles of trails. In this video, I'm going to show you about 50 day hike trails, and I'll tell you which are my favorites. I'll show you a hiking plan for a 1-week stay. It won't be perfect for everyone, but it's a good place to start. I'll also provide alternatives because weather, bears, and Mother Nature's other influences don't really care that you really want to do a trail on a certain day. Nature is in charge here, and she's going to do what she wants to do, regardless of your plans. I'll show you easy hikes, even wheelchair-accessible trails, and flat hikes in trees and magnificent valleys. And of course, I'll show you some strenuous ones as well. Most of the trails are out and back, but there are also some loop trails and some one-way trails that require transportation back to the trailhead. I'll tell you how to arrange for that too. For those of you who are new to the park, first let's say that there are 5 general areas, plus one that's accessed through the adjacent companion park in Canada called Waterton Lakes National Park. The Park Service website created a trail map for each of these 5 areas, and I'll refer to them often, so you might want to download and print them out before we really get started. This video is organized according to these maps. These maps include data that can be confusing and, well, frankly, a little hard to figure out. But the website also lists distance and elevation gain information below the map. On the map itself, the trails are listed at the top of each map, along with the net elevation gain, which can be a bit misleading, so I'll help fill in the gaps as we go along. So first, here's a brief overview of each area. Let's start with the Lake McDonald area. This is where most people enter the park, and it can be a bit crowded. The base elevation here is the lowest in the park, and most trails are well below the 6,000 to 6,900 foot tree line. So they're shaded, which is handy on hot days. Massive fires in 2017 and 2018 burned about 30,000 acres in this area. The mini Glacier map covers trails in the northeast part of the park, which is my favorite. There are flat trails with great views, strenuous hikes with great views, and my favorite trail, which ends at a glacier. The North Fork and Goat Haunt map extend to the Canadian border. The North Fork area has many remote finger lakes, which are accessed via rough gravel roads. Goat Haunt can only be accessed from a trail or through Canada. The St. Mary map includes trails along the east side of the Sun Road and Logan Pass. Here you'll find easy access to waterfalls near the Sun Road, hikes to high mountain passes, and popular trails at Logan Pass. Two Medicine is in the southeast part of the park. From the time the park opened in 1910 until the Going to the Sun Road was completed in 1932, most park visitors arrive by train in the nearby town of East Glacier. Today, Two Medicine is less crowded than the other areas of the park, which is kind of odd because it has some amazing trails. So that covers the 5 maps, but there are also some great trails in the adjoining Waterton National Park, so I'll talk about a couple of these too. If you're not a hiker, there's another way to do a trail, by horse. At the end of the video, I'll list my favorite hikes, which I consider must-dos. and I'll have a list of what I would call second-tier hikes. One very important thing we need to talk about before hitting the trail is safety, including bear safety, moose and goat safety, even mountain lion safety. And well, I even saw a porcupine near my Swift Current cabin once. Even if you're not going to hike a trail, you need to read the park's info on bear safety. For legal reasons, I can't really describe it here. All I'm going to say is that it's very important for you to know how to be safe out here. I've hiked hundreds of miles in the park, and I've never seen a bear near me.
Hey, bear.
But I always follow the rules. And rule number 1 is make noise. I have been close to goats and moose on trails, and even they can be dangerous. So please educate yourself, and maybe buy a can of bear spray when you get to the park, as it's not allowed on most airlines. And I've got one more housekeeping item before we start hiking. Glacier is a popular park, and at times it can be hard to get around. Up to 3 million people visit each year, and the vast majority do it in about the 3-month window when the Going to the Sun Road is open, which is usually in late June or early July, depending on the weather. And it usually closes in mid-September to October. And the park's lodges, well, they're not open year-round either. The lodges on the west side open in mid-May. The east side lodges don't open until a few weeks later, usually in early June. And they tend to close in mid-September, which is a couple of weeks earlier than the west side lodges. To help you get around, there is a form of mass transit. The park's website has a Getting Around page. Check it out at least once before heading here. There's border crossing info, typical driving times from the 5 park areas, and shuttle and tour information. The shuttle system has its own page, and even if you're planning on driving to trailheads every day, you may feel differently once you're here, so read it. The hiker shuttle is free along the Going to the Sun Road from St. Mary to Logan Pass, and on the west side it's free from Apgar to Logan Pass. The west side shuttles run every 15 to 30 minutes, but they only run every 40 minutes from St. Mary. Express service to Logan Pass starts at about 7 a.m. The regular service doesn't begin until 9 a.m. And the last bus leaves Logan Pass at 7 p.m., and you don't want to miss that one. Of course, these times are subject to change, so always check for yourself. And remember that there's no cell service in the park. Well, there's a little bit. Apgar generally can get it, but the rest of the park, you're not going to have any connection. I've heard that you can get some coverage if you have T-Mobile near St. Mary's, but the bulk of the park has absolutely no cell phone coverage. And yes, there's Wi-Fi in the park lodges, but it's very slow and frankly intermittent. Don't count on it. Because of size restrictions on the Sun Road, the shuttles are small, and they only hold 12 to 20 people, and they're often full. So you may have to wait for a second or even a third bus. During peak times, and hour waits are not unknown. There's another way to get around, and that's with a red bus. They have both shuttles and tours. The shuttles tend to operate only when the lodges are open. For a fee of $3 to $10, on the west side they can take you to and from the train station, or from Apgar to Lake McDonald. On the east side you can take a red bus from the Mini Glacier Hotel, or the Motor Inn, to the St. Mary Visitor Center. Glacier is beautiful. Maybe too beautiful. Overcrowding is now a problem. In the last few years, about 3 million people have visited the park. That's up about 50% from 10 years ago. I was here when Al Gore visited. I hiked to Grinnell Glacier with his group. And by the early 2000s, media reports claimed that all the glaciers in the park would be gone by 2020, prompting millions to come to see them before they melted away. But 26 of the glaciers are still here. By the way, you still may find a few signs in the park that claim all the glaciers will be gone by 2020. They removed a few of them in 2019, but they didn't have enough money in the budget to remove all of the inaccurate signs. But even though the glaciers are still here, I bet overcrowding will continue to be an issue. The vast majority of visitors stay outside the park, meaning they drive in. This leads to traffic jams and full parking lots. Some parts of the park are even closed for hours each day because of overcrowding. Before your trip, monitor the park's parking status page and its road status page to see where and what time of day overcrowding starts to shut things down. And consider taking a red bus or hiker shuttle when you're in the park. If you're lucky enough to stay in the park, check with the hotel staff or a local ranger station before leaving for another area. Road congestion is also caused by road construction. Such delays are common on the Sun Road, and there may be closures at night too. In 2020 and 2021, The popular Mini Glacier Road will be reconstructed, and long delays are expected both in and out of the area. Well, on that cheery note, I think I've given you plenty of time to print out the trail maps. So let's get started. Since most people come to the park from the west side, I'm going to start with the Lake McDonald area.